What's new, Socrates, to make you leave your usual haunts in the Lyceum and spend your time here by the King Archon's court? Surely you are not prosecuting anyone before the King Archon, as I am.
The Athenians do not call this a prosecution, but an indictment, Euthyphro.
What is this you say? Someone must have indicted you, for you are not going to tell me that you have indicted someone else.
No, indeed. But someone else has indicted you?
Quite so. Who is he?
I do not really know him myself, Euthyphro. He is apparently young and unknown. They call him Meletus, I believe. He belongs to the Pythian deme. If you know anyone from that deme called Meletus, with long hair, not much of a beard, and a rather aquiline nose.
I don't know him, Socrates. What charge does he bring against you?
What charge? A not ignoble one, I think. For it is no small thing for a young man to have knowledge of such an important subject. He says he knows how our young men are corrupted, and who corrupts them. He is likely to be wise, and when he sees my ignorance corrupting his contemporaries, he proceeds to accuse me to the city as to their mother. I think he is the only one of our public men to start out the right way, for it is right to care first that the young should be as good as possible, just as a good farmer is likely to take care of the young plants first, and of the others later. So, too, Meletus first gets rid of us who corrupt the young shoots, as he says, and then afterwards he will obviously take care of the older ones and become a source of great blessings for the city, as seems likely to happen to one who started out this way.
I could wish this were true, Socrates, but I fear the opposite may happen. He seems to me to start out by harming the very heart of the city by attempting to wrong you. Tell me, what does he say you do to corrupt the young?
Strange things to hear him tell it, for he says that I am a maker of gods, and on the ground that I create new gods, while not believing in the old gods, he has indicted me for their sake, as he puts it.
I understand, Socrates. This is because you say that the divine sign keeps coming to you. So he has written this indictment against you as one who makes innovations in religious matters, and he comes to court to slander you, knowing that such things are easily misrepresented to the crowd. The same is true in my case. Whenever I speak of divine matters in the assembly and foretell the future, they laugh me down as if I were crazy. And yet I have foretold nothing that did not happen. Nevertheless, they envy all of us who do this. One need not worry about them, but meet them head on.
My dear Euthyphro, to be laughed at does not matter, perhaps, for the Athenians do not mind anyone they think clever, as long as he does not teach his own wisdom. But if they think that he makes others to be like himself, they get angry, whether through envy, as you say, or for some other reason.
I certainly have no desire to test their feelings towards me in this matter.
Perhaps you seem to make yourself but rarely available, and not to be willing to teach your own wisdom. But I'm afraid that my liking for people makes them think that I pour out to anybody anything I have to say, not only without charging a fee, but even glad to reward anyone who is willing to listen. If, then, they were intending to laugh at me, as you say they laugh at you, there would be nothing unpleasant in their spending time in court laughing and jesting. But if they are going to be serious, the outcome is not clear except to you prophets. Perhaps it will come to nothing, Socrates, and you will fight your case as you think best, as I think I will mine. What is your case, Euthyphro? Are you the defendant or the prosecutor?
The prosecutor.
Whom do you prosecute?
One who I am thought crazy to prosecute.
Are you pursuing someone who will easily escape you?
Far from it, for he is quite old.
Who is it?
My father.
My dear sir, your own father?
Certainly.
What is the charge? What is the case about?
Murder, Socrates. Good heavens! Certainly, Euthyphro, most men would not know how they could do this and be right. It is not the part of anyone to do this, but of one who is far advanced in wisdom. Yes, by Zeus, Socrates, that is so. Is then the man your father killed one of your relatives? Or is that obvious, for you would not prosecute your father for the murder of a stranger? It is ridiculous, Socrates, for you to think that it makes any difference whether the victim is a stranger or a relative. One should only watch whether the killer acted justly or not. If he acted justly, let him go. But if not, one should prosecute, even if the killer shares your hearth and table. The pollution is the same if you knowingly keep company with such a man and do not cleanse yourself and him by bringing him to justice. The victim was a dependent of mine, and when we were farming in Naxos, he was a servant of ours. He killed one of our household slaves in drunken anger, so my father bound him hand and foot and threw him in a ditch, then sent a man here to inquire from the priest what should be done. During that time he gave no thought or care to the bound man as being a killer, and it was no matter if he died, which he did. Hunger and cold and his bonds caused his death before the messenger came back from the seer. Both my father and other relatives are angry that I am prosecuting my father for murder on behalf of a murderer when he hadn't even killed him, they say, and even if he had, the dead man does not deserve a thought, since he was a killer. For, they say, it is impious for a son to prosecute his father for murder. But their ideas of the divine attitude to piety and impiety are wrong, Socrates. Whereas, by Zeus, Euthyphro, you think that your knowledge of the divine and of piety and impiety is so accurate that when those things happened, as you say, you have no fear of acting impiously in bringing your father to trial? I should be of no use, Socrates, and Euthyphro would not be superior to the majority of men, if I did not have accurate knowledge of all such things. It is indeed most important, my admirable Euthyphro, that I should become your pupil, and as regards this indictment, challenge Meletus about these very things, and say to him that in the past, too, I considered knowledge about the divine to be most important, and that now that he says that I am guilty of improvising and innovating about the gods, I have become your pupil. I would say to him, if, Meletus, you agree that Euthyphro is wise in these matters, consider me, too, to have the right beliefs, and do not bring me to trial. If you do not think so, then prosecute that teacher of mine, not me, for corrupting the older men, me and his own father, by teaching me and by exhorting and punishing him. If he is not convinced, and does not discharge me or indict you instead of me, I shall repeat the same challenge in court. Yes, by Zeus, Socrates, and if he should try to indict me, I think I would find his weak spots, and the talk in court would be about him rather than about me. It is because I realize this that I am eager to become your pupil, my dear friend. I know that other people as well as this Meletus do not even seem to notice you, whereas he sees me so sharply and clearly that he indicts me for ungodliness. So tell me now, by Zeus, what you just now maintained you clearly knew. What kind of thing do you say that godliness and ungodliness are, both as regards murder and other things? Or is the pious not the same and alike in every action, and the impious the opposite of all that is pious and like itself, and everything that is to be impious presents us with one form or appearance in so far as it is impious? Most certainly, Socrates. Then tell me, what is the pious and what the impious, do you say? I say that the pious is to do what I am doing now, to prosecute the wrongdoer, be it about murder or temple robbery or anything else, whether the wrongdoer is your father or your mother or anyone else. Not to prosecute is impious. And observe, Socrates, that I can quote the law as a great proof that this is so. I have already said to others that such actions are right, not to favor the ungodly, whoever they are. These people themselves believe that Zeus is the best and most just of all the gods, yet they agree that he bound his father because he unjustly swallowed his sons, and that he in turn castrated his father for similar reasons. But they are angry with me because I am prosecuting my father for his wrongdoing. They contradict themselves in what they say about the gods and about me.
Indeed, Euthyphro, this is the reason why I am a defendant in the case, because I find it hard to accept things like that being said about the gods, and it is likely to be the reason why I shall be told I do wrong. Now, however, if you, who have full knowledge of such things, share their opinions, then we must agree with them too, it would seem. For what are we to say, we who agree that we ourselves have no knowledge of them? Tell me, by the God of friendship, do you really believe these things are true?
Yes, Socrates, and so are even more surprising things, of which the majority has no knowledge.
And do you believe that there really is war among the gods, and terrible enmities and battles, and other such things as are told by poets, and other sacred stories such as are embroidered by good writers, and by representations of which the robe of the goddess is adorned when it is carried up to the Acropolis? Are we to say that these things are true, Euthyphro?
Not only these, Socrates, but, as I was saying now, I will, if you wish, relate many other things about the gods which I know will amaze you.
I should not be surprised, but you will tell me these at leisure some other time. For now, try to tell me more clearly what I was asking just now, for, my friend, you did not teach me adequately when I asked you what the pious was, but you told me that what you are doing now, prosecuting your father for murder, is pious.
And I told the truth, Socrates.
Perhaps you agree, however, that there are many other pious actions.
There are.
Bear in mind, then, that I did not bid you tell me one or two of the many pious actions, but that form itself that makes all pious actions pious. For you agreed that all impious actions are impious, and all pious actions pious through one form. Or don't you remember?
I do.
Tell me, then, what this form itself is, so that I may look upon it, and, using it as a model, say that any action of yours or another's that is of that kind is pious, and if it is not, that it is not.
If that is how you want it, Socrates, that is how I will tell you.
That is what I want.
Well, then, what is dear to the gods is pious, what is not is impious.
Splendid, Euthyphro! You have now answered in the way I wanted. Whether your answer is true, I do not know yet, but you will obviously show me that what you say is true.
Certainly.
Come, then, let us examine what we mean. An action or a man dear to the gods is pious, but an action or a man hated by the gods is impious. They are not the same, but quite opposite, the pious and the impious. Is that not so?
It is indeed.
And that seems to be a good statement.
I think so, Socrates.
We have also stated that the gods are in a state of discord, that they are at odds with each other, Euthyphro, and that they are at enmity with each other. Has that too been said?
It has.
What are the subjects of difference that cause hatred and anger? Let us look at it this way. If you and I were to differ about numbers as to which is the greater, would this difference make us enemies and angry with each other, or would we proceed to count and soon resolve our difference about this?
We would certainly do so.
Again, if we differed about the larger and the smaller, we would turn to measurement and soon cease to differ.
That is so.
And about the heavier and the lighter, we would resort to weighing and be reconciled.
Of course.
What subject of difference would make us angry and hostile to each other if we were unable to come to a decision? Perhaps you do not have an answer ready, but examine, as I tell you, whether these subjects are the just and the unjust, the beautiful and the ugly, the good and the bad. Are these not the subjects of difference about which, when we are unable to come to a satisfactory decision, you and I and other men become hostile to each other whenever we do?
That is the difference, Socrates, about those subjects. What about the gods, Euthyphro? If indeed they have differences, will it not be about these same subjects? It certainly must be so. Then according to your argument, my good Euthyphro, different gods consider different things to be just, beautiful, ugly, good, and bad, for they would not be at odds with one another unless they differed about these subjects, would they? You are right. And they like what each of them considers beautiful, good, and just, and hate the opposites of these. Certainly. But you say that the same things are considered just by some gods and unjust by others, and as they dispute about these things, they are at odds and at war with each other. Is that not so? It is. The same things, then, are loved by the gods and hated by the gods, and would be both God-loved and God-hated. It seems likely. And the same things would be both pious and impious, according to this argument? I'm afraid so. So you did not answer my question, you surprising man. I did not ask you what same thing is both pious and impious, and it appears that what is loved by the gods is also hated by them. So it is in no way surprising if your present action, namely punishing your father, may be pleasing to Zeus, but also displeasing to Kronos and Uranos, pleasing to Hephaestus, but displeasing to Hera, and so with any other gods who differ from each other on this subject. I think, Socrates, that on this subject no gods would differ from one another, that whoever has killed anyone unjustly should pay the penalty. Well, now, Euthyphro, have you ever heard any man maintaining that one who has killed or done anything else unjustly should not pay the penalty? They never cease to dispute on this subject, both elsewhere and in the courts, for when they have committed many wrongs, they do and say anything to avoid the penalty. Do they agree they have done wrong, Euthyphro, and in spite of so agreeing, they nevertheless say they should not be punished? No, they do not agree on that point. So they do not say or do anything, for they do not venture to say this, or dispute that they must not pay the penalty if they have done wrong. But I think they deny doing wrong. Is that not so? That is true. Then they do not dispute that the wrongdoer must be punished, but they may disagree as to who the wrongdoer is, and what he did and when. You are right. Do not the gods have the same experience, if indeed they are at odds with each other about the just and the unjust, as your argument maintains? Some assert that they wrong one another, while others deny it, but no one among gods or men ventures to say that the wrongdoer must not be punished. Yes, that is true, Socrates, as to the main point. And those who disagree, whether men or gods, dispute about each action, if indeed the gods disagree. Some say it is done justly, others unjustly. Is that not so? Yes, indeed. Come now, my dear Euthyphro, tell me too, that I may become wiser. What proof you have that all the gods consider that man to have been killed unjustly who became a murderer while in your service, was bound by the master of his victim, and died in his bonds before the one who bound him found out from the seers what was to be done with him, and that it is right for a son to denounce and to prosecute his father on behalf of such a man? Come, try to show me a clear sign that all the gods definitely believe this action to be right. If you can give me adequate proof of this, I shall never cease to extol your wisdom. That is perhaps no light task, Socrates, though I could show you very clearly. I understand that you think me more dull-witted than the jury, as you will obviously show them that these actions were unjust and that all the gods hate such actions. I will show it to them clearly, Socrates, if only they will listen to me. They will listen if they think you show them well. But this thought came to me as you were speaking, and I am examining it, saying to myself, if Euthyphro shows me conclusively that all the gods consider such a death unjust, to what greater extent have I learned from him the nature of piety and impiety? This action would then, it seems, be hated by the gods. But the pious and the impious were not thereby now defined, for what is hated by the gods has also been shown to be loved by them. So I will not insist on this point. Let us assume, if you wish, that all the gods consider this unjust, and that they all hate it. However, is this the correction we are making in our discussion, that what all the gods hate is impious, and what they all love is pious, and that what some gods love and others hate is neither or both? Is that how you now wish us to define piety and impiety? What prevents us from doing so, Socrates? For my part, nothing, Euthyphro, but you look whether on your part this proposal will enable you to teach me most easily what you promised. I would certainly say that the pious is what all the gods love, and the opposite, what all the gods hate, is the impious. Then let us again examine whether that is a sound statement, or do we let it pass? And if one of us, or someone else, merely says that something is so, do we accept that it is so? Or should we examine what the speaker means? We must examine it, but I certainly think that this is now a fine statement. We shall know soon better whether it is. Consider this. Is the pious loved by the gods because it is pious, or is it pious because it is loved by the gods? I don't know what you mean, Socrates. I shall try to explain more clearly. We speak of something being carried and something carrying, of something being led and something leading, of something being seen and something seeing, and you understand that these things are all different from one another and how they differ. I think I do. So, there is something being loved and something loving, and the loving is a different thing. Of course. Tell me then, whether that which is being carried because someone carries it, or for some other reason? No, that is the reason. And that which is being led is so because someone leads it, and that which is being seen because someone sees it? Certainly. It is not seen by someone because it is being seen, but on the contrary, it is being seen because someone sees it. Nor is it because it is being led that someone leads it, but because someone leads it that it is being led. Nor does someone carry an object because it is being carried, but it is being carried because someone carries it. Is what I want to say clear, Euthyphro? I want to say this, namely, that if anything comes to be, or is affected, it does not come to be because it is coming to be, but it is coming to be because it comes to be. Nor is it affected because it is being affected, but because something affects it. Or do you not agree? I do. What is being loved is either something that comes to be, or something that is affected by something? Certainly. So it is in the same case as the things just mentioned. It is not loved by those who love it because it is being loved, but it is being loved because they love it. Necessarily. What then do we say about the pious, Euthyphro? Surely that it is loved by all the gods, according to what you say. Yes. Is it loved because it is pious, or for some other reason? For no other reason. It is loved then because it is pious, but it is not pious because it is loved. Apparently. And because it is loved by the gods, it is being loved and is dear to the gods. Of course. The God beloved, then, is not the same as the pious, Euthyphro, nor the pious the same as the God beloved, as you say it is, but one differs from the other. How so, Socrates? Because we agree that the pious is beloved for the reason that it is pious, but it is not pious because it is loved. Is that not so? Yes. And that the God beloved, on the other hand, is so because it is loved by the gods, by the very fact of being loved, but it is not loved because it is God beloved? True. But if the God-beloved and the pious were the same, my dear Euthyphro, and the pious were loved because it was pious, then the God-beloved would be loved because it was God-beloved. And if the God-beloved was God-beloved because it was loved by the gods, then the pious would also be pious because it was loved by the gods. But now you see that they are in opposite cases as being altogether different from each other. The one is of a nature to be loved because it is loved. The other is loved because it is of a nature to be loved. I'm afraid, Euthyphro, that when you were asked what piety is, you did not wish to make its nature clear to me, but you told me an affect or quality of it, that the pious has the quality of being loved by all the gods, but you have not yet told me what the pious is. Now, if you will, do not hide things from me, but tell me again from the beginning what piety is. Whether loved by the gods or having some other quality, we shall not quarrel about that. But be keen to tell me what the pious and the impious are.
But, Socrates, I have no way of telling you what I have in mind, for whatever proposition we put forward goes round and refuses to stay put where we establish it.
Your statements, Euthyphro, seem to belong to my ancestor Daedalus. If I were stating them and putting them forward, you would perhaps be making fun of me and say that because of my kinship with him, my conclusions in discussion run away and will not stay where one puts them. As these propositions are yours, however, we need some other jest, for they will not stay put for you, as you say yourself.
I think the same jest will do for our discussion, Socrates, for I am not the one who makes them go around and not remain in the same place. It is you who are the Daedalus, for, as far as I am concerned, they would remain as they were.
It looks as if I was cleverer than Daedalus in using my skill, my friend, insofar as he could only cause to move the things he made himself, but I can make other people's move as well as my own. And the smartest part of my skill is that I am clever without wanting to be, for I would rather have your statements to me remain unmoved than possess the wealth of Tantalus as well as the cleverness of Daedalus. But enough of this. Since I think you are making unnecessary difficulties, I am as eager as you are to find a way to teach me about piety, and do not give up before you do. See whether you think that all that is pious is of necessity just.
I think so.
And is then all that is just pious? Or is all that is pious just, but not all that is just pious? For some of it is, and some of it is not.
I do not follow what you are saying, Socrates.
Yet you are younger than I by as much as you are wiser. As I say, you are making difficulties because of your wealth of wisdom. Pull yourself together, my dear sir. What I am saying is not difficult to grasp. I am saying the opposite of what the poet said, who wrote, "You do not wish to name Zeus, who had done it, and who made all things grow, for where there is fear, there is also shame." I disagree with the poet. Shall I tell you why?
Please do.
I do not think that where there is fear, there is also shame. For I think that many people who fear disease and poverty and many other such things feel fear, but are not ashamed of the things they fear. Do you not think so?
I do indeed.
But where there is shame, there is also fear. For is there anyone who, in feeling shame and embarrassment at anything, does not also at the same time fear and dread a reputation for wickedness?
He is certainly afraid.
It is then not right to say, where there is fear, there is also shame, but that where there is shame, there is also fear, for fear covers a larger area than shame. Shame is a part of fear, just as odd is a part of number, with the result that it is not true that where there is a number, there is also oddness, but that where there is oddness, there is also number. Do you follow me now?
Surely.
This is the kind of thing I was asking before, whether where there is piety, there is also justice. But where there is justice, there is not always piety. For the pious is a part of justice. Shall we say that, or do you think otherwise?
No, but like that, for what you say appears to be right.
See what comes next. If the pious is a part of the just, we must, it seems, find out what part of the just it is. Now, if you asked me something of what we mentioned just now, such as what part of number is the even, and what number that is, I would say it is the number that is divisible into two equal, not unequal, parts. Or do you not think so? I do. Try in this way to tell me what part of the just the pious is, in order to tell Meletus not to wrong us any more and not to indict me for ungodliness, since I have learned from you sufficiently what is godly and pious and what is not. I think, Socrates, that the godly and pious is the part of the just that is concerned with the care of the gods, while that concerned with the care of men is the remaining part of justice. You seem to me to put that very well, but I still need a bit of information. I do not know yet what you mean by care, for you do not mean the care of the gods in the same sense as the care of other things, as, for example, we say, don't we, that not everyone knows how to care for horses, but the horse breeder does. Yes, I do mean it that way. So horse breeding is the care of horses, yes. Nor does everyone know how to care for dogs, but the hunter does. That is so. So hunting is the care of dogs. Yes. And cattle raising is the care of cattle. Quite so. While piety and godliness is the care of the gods, Euthyphro. Is that what you mean? It is. Now, care, in each case, has the same effect. It aims at the good and the benefit of the object cared for. As you can see that horses cared for by horse breeders are benefited and become better. Or do you not think so? I do. So dogs are benefited by dog breeding, cattle by cattle raising, and so with all the others. Or do you think that care aims to harm the object of its care? By Zeus, no. It aims to benefit the object of its care. Of course. Is piety then, which is the care of the gods, also to benefit the gods and make them better? Would you agree that when you do something pious, you make some one of the gods better? By Zeus, no. Nor do I think that this is what you mean. Far from it. But that is why I asked you what you meant by care of the gods, because I did not believe you meant this kind of care. Quite right, Socrates. That is not the kind of care I mean. Very well, but what kind of care of the gods would piety be? The kind of care, Socrates, that slaves take of their masters. I understand. It is likely to be a kind of service of the gods. Quite so. Could you tell me to the achievement of what goal service to doctors tends? Is it not, do you think, to achieving health? I think so. What about service to shipbuilders? To what achievement is it directed? Clearly, Socrates, to the building of a ship. And service to house builders? To the building of a house? Yes. Tell me then, my good sir, to the achievement of what aim does service to the gods tend? You obviously know, since you say that you, of all men, have the best knowledge of the divine. And I am telling the truth, Socrates. Tell me then, by Zeus, what is that excellent aim that the gods achieve, using us as their servants? Many fine things, Socrates. So do generals, my friend. Nevertheless, you could easily tell me their main concern, which is to achieve victory in war, is it not? Of course. The farmers, too, I think, achieve many fine things, but the main point of their efforts is to produce food from the earth. Quite so. Well then, how would you sum up the many fine things that the gods achieve? I told you a short while ago, Socrates, that it is a considerable task to acquire any precise knowledge of these things, but To put it simply, I say that if a man knows how to say and do what is pleasing to the gods at prayer and sacrifice, those are pious actions, such as preserve both private houses and public affairs of state. The opposite of these pleasing actions are impious, and overturn and destroy everything.
You could tell me in far fewer words, if you were willing, the sum of what I asked, Euthyphro, but you are not keen to teach me. That is clear. You were on the point of doing so, but you turned away. If you had given that answer, I should now have acquired from you sufficient knowledge of the nature of piety. As it is, the lover of inquiry must follow his beloved wherever it may lead him. Once more, then. What do you say that piety and the pious are? Are they a knowledge of how to sacrifice and pray?
They are.
To sacrifice is to make a gift to the gods, whereas to pray is to beg from the gods.
Definitely, Socrates.
It would follow from this statement that piety would be a knowledge of how to give to and beg from the gods.
You understood what I said very well, Socrates.
That is because I am so desirous of your wisdom, and I concentrate my mind on it, so that no word of yours may fall to the ground. But tell me, what is this service to the gods? You say it is to beg from them and to give to them.
I do.
And to beg correctly would be to ask from them things that we need?
What else?
And to give correctly is to give them what they need from us. For it would not be skillful to bring gifts to anyone that are in no way needed.
True, Socrates.
Piety would then be a sort of trading skill between gods and men?
Trading, yes, if you prefer to call it that.
I prefer nothing unless it is true. But tell me, what benefit do the gods derive from the gifts they receive from us? What they give us is obvious to all. There is for us no good that we do not receive from them. But how are they benefited by what they receive from us? Or do we have such an advantage over them in the trade that we receive all our blessings from them and they receive nothing from us?
Do you suppose, Socrates, that the gods are benefited by what they receive from us?
What could those gifts from us to the gods be, Euthyphro?
What else do you think than honor, reverence, and what I mentioned just now, gratitude?
The pious is then, Euthyphro, pleasing to the gods, but not beneficial or dear to them?
I think it is of all things most dear to them.
So the pious is once again what is dear to the gods?
Most certainly.
When you say this, will you be surprised if your arguments seem to move about instead of staying put? And will you accuse me of being Daedalus who makes them move, though you are yourself much more skillful than Daedalus and make them go round in a circle? Or do you not realize that our argument has moved around and come again to the same place? You surely remember that earlier the pious and the God-beloved were shown not to be the same, but different from each other. Or do you not remember?
I do.
Do you not then realize now that you are saying that what is dear to the gods is the pious? Is this not the same as the God-beloved? Or is it not?
It certainly is.
Either we were wrong when we agreed before, or, if we were right then, we are wrong now.
That seems to be so.
So we must investigate again from the beginning what piety is, as I shall not willingly give up before I learn this. Do not think me unworthy, but concentrate your attention and tell the truth, for you know it, if any man does, and I must not let you go, like Proteus, before you tell me. If you had no clear knowledge of piety and impiety, you would never have ventured to prosecute your old father for murder on behalf of a servant. For fear of the gods, you would have been afraid to take the risk, lest you should not be acting rightly, and would have been ashamed before men. But now I know well that you believe you have clear knowledge of piety and impiety. So tell me, my good Euthyphro, and do not hide what you think it is.
Some other time, Socrates, for I am in a hurry now, and it is time for me to go.
What a thing to do, my friend! By going, you have cast me down from a great hope I had, that I would learn from you the nature of the pious and the impious, and so escape Meletus's indictment, by showing him that I had acquired wisdom in divine matters from Euthyphro, and my ignorance would no longer cause me to be careless and inventive about such things, and that I would be better for the rest of my life.